Hello, beautiful people. My name is Viola Borden, and I am a licensed professional counselor, licensed mental health counselor in another state. I have a couple of states underneath my belt with hopefully more states to come. I want to share with you what it is why I'm here and what it is I'm attempting to do. I have been doing therapy since about the beginning of 2019. Recently founded a mental health private practice, and I wanted to share some just tips and coping skills. And I think that this is the proper platform, but I'm not used to social media. I'll admit I am not a social media personality, nor do I overly enjoy being on video. But I think that there's so many messages, and majority of them, I won't say majority of them because that's just not fair, right? But I will say that a lot of them are negative. Um, and I think that we have to use the power for good. So I wanted to share just some knowledge and wisdom and techniques and things that I think can be extremely beneficial. My main focus is the BIPOC community. I opened the practice focused on the BIPOC community. I think that there's a lot of biases that still exist in the mental health arena for Black and Brown and Indigenous people. I want to increase mental health awareness, understanding of um, we are out here. There are color therapists that are out here that are willing and eager to work with the BIPOC community, and also willing to educate when necessary. I think that my main focus today, and I won't say I think because I know, I decided to do this because I am a Prepare Enrich facilitator. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Prepare Enrich, but Prepare Enrich has been around forever. And I got certified with them to be a facilitator. And the prepare part is working with couples that are maybe preparing for marriage. And the other part is the enrich, which is the maintenance of those marriages. There's a lot of assessment tools and worksheets and information that we have access to as facilitators. So I really do enjoy working with couples, especially helping individuals in the BIPOC community develop and maintain healthy relationships, because I believe that healthy relationships make healthy families, make healthy communities eventually. So it's my goal to help in any way that I can to make that a reality. I know that some of the things that I really wanted to talk about today was just a couple of tips in terms of relationships and some of the issues that we deal with in relationships. I think the biggest thing for me working with couples, and this, I hate to say it, it rests mostly with us ladies. We have what I refer to as MRS. We suffer from mind reading syndrome. I can't count how many times that I've been in therapy sessions with maybe even the individual who may be talking or discussing about something in their relationship or in a couple session. And a lot of times it said, well, I don't feel I should have to ask, or they should know. This is the largest and most toxic mindset in a relationship, because it's almost like you expect the person to read your mind. The only thing that is consistent that I know that I can always count on is change. All right. We are often changing. We are often evolving. If we are lucky, we are growing. And I think to expect our partners to read our minds, right, is a little bit unfair. There are things I know that we may have mentioned in passing, and we may have alluded to, or we may have even directly addressed within the relationship. But I think that it's important to take into account who your partner is, and your partner may require a reminder every now and again. But also, if you need something, say something. It's not going to kill us to say something. I don't know what it is about that concept of I feel like I shouldn't have to say. And as soon as a person says that to me in session, they say, I don't feel I should have to say anything. I said, who said? Who said it? Where does that come from? What's that rooted in? Right? Because I really want to challenge some of those ideals that we have that interfere with our ability to have and maintain, develop and maintain healthy relationships. So I just put together a couple of quick tips to talk about. Hopefully you'll find them educational, or if not entertaining, at least. So the first one that I wanted to talk about is that we need to stop seeking to be understood. We need to stop seeking to be understood, and we need to seek to increase understanding. And what I mean by that is, when I say stop seeking to be understood, right? There's nothing wrong with being understood, but when that's our main focus, right? We're trying to drive it home, drive certain things home, right? We put a lot of focus on that, of how the other person responds. Are they getting it? Are they understanding? And a lot of times I think that people are so desperate to be understood that they communicate things about themselves that they may not have solidified, or may be unhealthy, and they're attempting to communicate it, right? So when I say seek to increase understanding, I mean of self-knowledge, right? The more we understand ourselves, right, the more clear we can communicate who we are, and then the being understood part lies on the person's potential or abilities to understand, right? So I would definitely say seek first self-knowledge, right? Stop looking for our partners to validate us, right? We have to first understand and validate ourselves. Second is we teach people how to treat us. That's huge. I do that all day long in individual sessions and in couple sessions. I talk about this point, and I always wrap it kind of into the cliche of you can't learn to love anyone else until you first learn to love yourself. I think that it's important and it's true. I think that we're often seeking something in relationships. We're often seeking love, respect, what being validated. And I think that those things first have to start within self. I think that respect, to look to someone to give you respect or to respect you, you have to first respect yourself, or setting healthy boundaries. That's a big part of what I do all day long in sessions, is boundaries. You would be surprised how difficult it is to get people to develop healthy boundaries, especially with family members or intimate partners and parents. Oh, that's the number one big one, right? Because if you are an adult, and if you come from the Black or Brown community, you guys are going to know exactly what I'm talking about, how hard that is to set boundaries or tell your parents that they can't do certain things. But we have to understand that we're seeking to be healthy, right? This is about being healthy. This is not about being traditional. This is not about, I think that it's important to have boundaries with everyone, with your kids, with your parents, with everyone. And the closer the relationship, the harder it's probably going to be to establish those boundaries, because I teach boundaries in three phases. And that's the first one is development, right? And when you're developing a boundary, you have to have a consequence attached to it. If you don't have a consequence, I tell all my clients, it's of no consequence. You might as well forget it. You're just blowing hot air, right? Don't walk on my grass. I don't want to walk on my grass. Stop walking my grass. I don't want to walk on my grass. But if there's no consequence, right, there's no way to potentially modify the other person's behavior, right? So if there's no consequence, consequences have to be effective, right? So we definitely need to develop healthy boundaries with consequences, and those consequences have to be something you're willing to execute. You can't say, if you walk on my grass, I'm going to send you to the moon. We know you ain't got no rocket ships in your backyard, that you're just blowing hot air, right? So it has to be something that you're able and willing to execute. And it has to be something that causes the person that it's meant for some level of, I'll use the word distress, right? Because we don't often pay attention until we're distressed, right? So we want to kind of shake things up a little bit, right? So that's what the consequence is about. The second stage is the communication. I tell everyone I work with, whether it's an individual or couples, it is totally unfair to set a boundary, right, and not communicate it. I said, you can equate that to putting up a fence, an electric fence around your property, or having a huge dog. Every government or state requires that we put some type of warning, right? You have to put, hey, warning, electric fence, there are 300 joules or, volts going through this fence. Touch at your own risk, right? If it's a big dog, beware of big dog, right? We have to put that up. It's the same way with boundaries. A lot of times we communicate boundaries and we think, oh, we're doing a good job. I told him I didn't like it. I told him I didn't like it. No, that's just you telling them you don't like it. That's not you setting a boundary. Telling someone you don't like something, and that's the thing, right? We think that's the MRS, I think, popping in. Sometimes maybe men can do that too, where they communicate, I don't like it. I don't like it. I want you to stop it. I want you to stop. Right? But that's not setting a healthy boundary, right? A healthy boundary sounds like, I want you to stop that behavior, or I will not tolerate that behavior. If that behavior continues, the consequence will be X, Y, and Z. That's a fully developed boundary. Saying I don't like it, yelling, screaming, threatening, that's not setting a healthy boundary. I just need us to understand that, because they say, I told them 100 times I don't like it. You can tell them 100 more. Right? But if there's no consequence, right, there's nothing to modify the behavior. Boundaries also can be set for ourselves, or they can be set for other people. I tell people all the time, when people, especially people who struggle with creating boundaries for close relationships, boundaries aren't just for you, protecting you. Boundaries are also for protecting the other person from you. Right? Because if the person keeps pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and this is sometimes maybe, and maybe it's just me, maybe I'm the only person who has exhibited or seen it in my lifetime, where person you pushing you, and you snap and you spaz out and you cuss the person out. And then, then you're sitting around and you're saying, oh, you're feeling bad. And now you got to go through the cycle of shame and regret, right? And then we got to apologize. And then we kind of just do the same thing over and over and over again, right? And the reality is this is what I've learned about teaching boundaries. Boundaries are the quickest way to free ourselves, right? Because when we have people in our lives who constantly push buttons or do things, right? We know that Leroy coming over, and Leroy is one of those people that loves to push my buttons, right? And we're already having anxiety because we know Leroy's coming to the event, right? And the reality is, because we're on guard, right? We're hyper vigilant about how that person is going to behave, right? We're already hyper vigilant about that. So when I say boundaries free us, right? What it does is, when you set a healthy boundary, you develop it and you communicate it, right? You no longer have to wait for Leroy, anticipate what Leroy is going to do, right? Because you already got a plan in place, right? And you already know that you communicated it to Leroy. Now, guess what happens? And this is where the shift happens, right? Where I no longer have to watch Leroy's behavior. Guess what? Now Leroy has to watch Leroy's behavior, right? Because Leroy knows the boundary, right? And he also knows the consequence, because I've communicated the consequence to Leroy, right? So my thing is, now Leroy has to determine whether he's willing to pay the consequence or not, right? Which frees me up. I don't have to worry about it. I've already got this plan in place. If you do this, this is what's happened. I'm willing to execute it. I don't even have to think about it, right? So the anxiety reduces, right? Because I don't have to be hyper vigilant about watching Leroy's behaviors. Leroy need to be watching Leroy's behaviors. And that's how behavioral modification happens. Okay. The third tip, I have another tip, and it's if you want to be loved, be love. Oh Lord, I don't know how to even really dig into this one, but be mindful. Be mindful. You have to create and cultivate a environment, a loving environment, right? In order for love to exist. It's important. You can't act like a maniac or a monster, and just expect somebody to love you, despite all your flaws or faults. Be mindful. It's important to be mindful in our relationships, which kind of leads me into the next tip. Uh, the next tip. I have to backtrack, y'all. I forgot the third stage of boundary development. Just really quickly, you have to recap, you have development of the boundary and consequence. Second is the communication. And the third is maintenance. That's it. I talked about it, but I didn't really explain that. That's just the third stage of boundary. It's maintenance. That's it. What you say you're going to do, if they cross the boundary, has to be done. That's it. That's your only job. It's the maintenance it after that. Okay. Moving back to the fourth tip. The fourth tip is kind of plays off of tip three about if you want to be loved, be loved. Um, the fourth one is don't make your partner a long jumper or a hurdler. I mean, unless they're planning on going to the Olympics, then that's something different, right? But I say that because we come to the table with a lot of time, a lot of baggage. We all have baggage, all of us. Um, I know that a lot of us experience trauma, and a lot of us have unresolved trauma. We often think, I'm over that, I'm good, I don't even think about that no more. But the reality is that it often plays out in the way that we respond, the way that we think, the way that we act, whether we know it or not. I always say that trauma is not self-healing, right? If it was that just that thing that you had went through, right, it wouldn't be called trauma, right? Trauma is deeper. Trauma doesn't just go away. It doesn't, because we ignore it or we sweep it under the rug or we don't talk about it. If it's enough to be titled or referred to as traumatic or trauma, it needs to be processed. And some people overcome trauma. Some people spend a lifetime overcoming their trauma, depending upon the level of impact of the trauma. But I think that it's important not to bring all of these things into a relationship and just expect our partner to long jump it or hurdle it and to get to us, right? That's a lot of work for a person to do. And I know we think if they love me, right, they would, right? But then that goes back to the original statement when I opened. You have to first learn to love yourself, right? If they love themselves, they would not, right? And it's not to say not to support people in the process of doing their work, their trauma work. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that it's not their responsibility to long jump or hurdle all of your baggage, right? Or your stuff. Okay. So you should always consistently be working on your own healing, right? And your partner should just be a supporter while you are on your journey. The last tip that I want to share is it is accept that in all things we all hold some level of accountability, right? This is huge. This is huge. I know that and especially people who have trauma are very reactive, right? And well, I only did that because you did this, right? If you hadn't said that, I wouldn't have said this, right? I have a thing that I've been saying for years. Not only are we responsible for our actions, but we're also responsible for our reactions. I think that's extremely important to understand, right? That we have to take accountability. So if so and so said such and such, right, and then we judged them, just verbally just judged them, right? Had they not said that, I wouldn't have said that, right? But the reality is that when they show up, you still holding the bloody knife, right? We have some level of accountability in all things. There's no situation where a person is 100% responsible for everything, right? Sometimes it comes down to what we will or will not accept, right? The fact that we're accepting it, that's we have to be accountable for that, right? If we tell somebody to stop doing something, they do it again, and we tell them again to stop doing it, and we still there, right? We have some level of accountability for staying or not setting a healthy boundary for that thing. So I think those are some of the most important tips and the main tips that I probably discuss multiple times a day. And I thought it was important to just put it on video. And I hope that this is beneficial for you guys. If you want more, comment. I'm not sure what platforms I'm going to be sharing this on. I'm thinking, I don't know if I can put this length of a video on TikTok or YouTube, but I will find a way to get it out there. If you want more, I'm sure there's going to be some way to respond or to message. Let me know. I'll be more than happy to do this with you guys or for you guys. So I hope you enjoyed the information, and I hope I didn't stumble too much or go off track. But I want everyone to have a very, very blessed day and enjoy your holidays and be conscientious and loving of yourself and others as we move into 2024.